Welcome to Book Talk. I'm Stephen Ussery, and we're very honored today to be joined by the Queen of Suspense, Mary Higgins Clark. Thank you so much for stopping by, Mary.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Stephen. I'm glad to be with you.
Mary Higgins Clark is, of course, one of the most successful writers in America, having sold more than 100 million copies of her books. She's authored over 36 of them, received more honors, prizes, and honorary doctorates than if we had 3 episodes of Book Talk. We probably still couldn't list them all. But she's here today to talk about her newest novel, Just Take My Heart, and it's now available from Simon & Schuster. Mary, Just Take My Heart is yet another one of your books to reach the top of the New York Times bestseller list. Do you still get excited when you see that big #1 beside your name?
Oh, you bet. Stephen, you know, to be #1 in the country with all the books that are out there, and I've done it, a lot. That doesn't mean you're going to do it this time. It's like having a baby. If you have a dozen kids, you can't count that the next one is going to be healthy and everything that you hope for. So I'm really delighted. Sure, it's planting a flag on the moon, with apologies to the astronauts.
Now, we start off Just Take My Heart with Natalie Raines, and she's one of the biggest stars on Broadway in your book. Tell us a little bit about her.
Well, Natalie Raines is a famous actress, more Broadway than films, although she's an Oscar nominee. She's 38 years old. She's been married for 5 years to her theatrical agent who had been a widower, and she's feeling excessive guilt all the time. What she doesn't understand is that he knows he married a successful actress who's going to be on the road a lot. She thinks that she's not doing him any good. He has a young daughter by his first early marriage, and she thinks, I'll do him more of a favor if I divorce him. And the conflict is that he's saying no, and then she is in the final performance of, what's the Tennessee Williams play for heaven?
Streetcar Named Desire.
Thank you very much, Streetcar Named Desire. And she recognizes that night, people crowd into her dressing room to congratulate her, the man whose picture she had seen in her friend's wallet when her friend had been murdered 15 years or 18 years earlier.
And she's been carrying around this trauma for a very long time.
And so sure, she only saw the picture once, but it was gone when her friend was strangled in Central Park. And she always felt that whoever that man was is the man who killed Jamie. And she saw him, and she has such a keen eye, and she called him by the pet name Jamie had for him. And she knew that he knew. And she fled to Cape Cod, where her grandmother's house she owns, but it's lonely up there. There's a storm, the lights go out. She comes home really in the middle of the night, gets home at 8 o'clock in the morning, and there's someone waiting for her inside.
Now, many of your books have been turned into films or adapted for television. Is Natalie based on any of those actresses you've met over the years?
No, but remember, I wrote radio shows, and I knew many actresses. I wrote a radio show for Betty White, for Peggy Cass, for Bess Meyerson, for Betsy Palmer, and so I've known actresses, and I know not them specifically, but others who are always troubled about the conflict between marriage and children and traveling, especially when you're Broadway, where the show goes on the road and you're gone for a long time. And the girl, and I can't even remember her name, who was in Streetcar, I had just seen that. And her image was the one I brought of Natalie. I thought, that's the image of Natalie that I see. You see, nothing is ever lost. You go to a play and say, aha, that's why she looks like the new one in the book.
You can write off almost every experience as a professional research experience.
Do you know, I'll tell you something right now. My daughter, Carol, who will be on your show, we wanted a piece of pizza, and our escort looked up, and he said, well, there's so-and-so's pizza, and he had a guide. It's only 2 miles from here. We went down a block of houses that are not in good repair. The address is a boarded-up house of the pizza place. And I said, my God, Carol, one of us will use this.
Now, one of her neighbors has a cleaning lady, and this cleaning lady finds Natalie just bleeding to death.
Right.
And then we fast forward 2.5 years. And at this point, Natalie's husband, Greg Aldrich, the theatrical agent, is going to be charged with her murder finally.
He's going to be indicted for her murder.
And there we meet Emily Wallace, and she's an assistant prosecutor in Bergen County, New Jersey, and she's suffered from more than her fair share of tragedy as well.
Yes, she has. Her husband, who had been in the reserve, his father was career Army. He had been in Iraq, he was a captain, and he had been killed in a roadside bomb. And a year later, she found out that her aorta, that was 3 years ago, she needed an aorta replacement, and everybody knew that. They didn't know it failed, and she had a heart transplant. She had thought, enough sympathy, I don't want people to know that, let them think it's just the aorta. And now she's been working again for nearly 2 years, and her boss gives her the plum assignment. Because you see, when you get a high-profile case, when you're an assistant prosecutor, that's important. You get that case, and if you win, it helps to establish your career, whether you stay in the prosecutor's office or whether you go into private practice. And now her boss tells her, Emily, you deserve this. You're going to try Greg Aldrich for the murder of Natalie Raines, his wife. What Emily does not know is that 2.5 years ago, she received Natalie's heart. And Natalie's heart is beating inside her as she tries to prosecute the man Natalie loved, her husband. And you see, there is a theory, and there are many cases to prove it, that the heart has molecular memory. And I've spoken to many people and heard about others where they say, I'm different in some way. Maybe it's a taste. An executive said, I never ate candy as a kid. I came out of that operation yearning for a chocolate bar. Someone who said I was very quiet, I feel more confident. A man I spoke to said, I know I'm different. He said, I was always abrasive and very roughshod on people's emotions. I didn't care. I wanted the job done. If it wasn't done right, boom. But he said, I don't know whose heart I have, but that person was an infinitely nicer person than I am. I am emotionally much kinder and much more understanding of the other guy's problems. So I was on a flight the other day, and the air hostess said, my son, 3-year-old son, received a kidney, because don't forget, that also has molecular knowledge in it, transplant when he was 3 years old. He's 9 now. He's obsessed about, he wants to be a fireman, he likes stories of fires. The man whose heart he got was a fireman. So I thought the molecular knowledge is a fascinating and valid way to tell a story.
Now, you have an amazing heart yourself, gone through heartache early in your life, and have lost a husband early on. And your heart is as good as it can get. But if you were to have someone else's heart, whose would you want?
Whose heart would I want? Oh, let me see. Maybe Albert Einstein's. Someone very good, someone who philanthropic, and I'd like it if they were generally smart, you know. Maybe Albert Einstein.
Now, Ted Wesley is the lead prosecutor in Bergen County who gave Emily this chance, but he has a reason for passing on the case himself. He's just been nominated to a very large position.
To be Attorney General of the United States. And he has been very high profile, and then was appointed prosecutor. He had had his own successful law firm, but it was a stepping stone. And what he really wanted was to get into the administration, or a Republican administration. And I thought, well, now it's a good time. You see, you try to be timely. This last year, we've heard so much about people being appointed to office and to the cabinet. I thought, this is a good time to write about someone. I mean, the present Attorney General might be a little upset to think his job was on the line. But Ted is going for the national office. Otherwise, he would have taken the case himself, because that's the kind of guy he is.
He likes winners.
He likes winners. He's very fond of winners.
Now, as much of local politics are, there is a bit of nepotism inside the office. And the lead investigator Emily has to work with is Ted's cousin, Billy Tryon.
Yeah.
What's the friction between Emily and Billy?
Tryon, as he points out to her, when she was in the 3rd grade, he was working in that office. He resents having a woman as boss, and what she does not like about him was that she knows he stretches the line that he will say, that she hears too often that someone said, I never said that to him. I never admitted that. I never told him that. And she is so totally ethical that she's very disturbed about the fact that Billy Tryon is a guy who may be stretching the truth when he tells what the man who came forward and said, Greg Aldridge bribed me to kill his wife. Whether, how much validity, she believes that he did it, but how much did Billy help him to concoct a story?
Now, the man who's come forward accusing Greg Aldrich of paying him to kill his wife, Natalie, is what we used to call a rat fink. A rat fink,
a career criminal, a lowlife. But he tells a very valid story. And as she points out in her address to the jury, let us say right now he is a career criminal. Let us say right now that Jimmy Eston has spent half of his adult life in prison. Let us say right now he is getting a break in his sentence on his last offense by testifying. But let us also say we have absolute proof that Greg Aldridge met with him, made the bribe with him, and that Jimmy backed out, so Greg did it himself. So you always get that up front when you're a prosecutor. You don't want the defense attorney to say, and who is her witness? You just get it out on the table and then prove, if you can, that Jimmy Easton, for once in his life, is telling the truth.
Now, of course, with a high-profile case like this, the television coverage is going to be rather intense. And it just so happens Greg Aldrich, one of his best friends, hosts a court show, and Michael Gordon. What is Michael's situation in all of this?
Michael Gordon had honestly believed Ted was innocent. When this came out, Greg said to him that the accusation came out, and that's why Greg was indicted. You're covering the trial. It will be very uncomfortable for you to be with me or seen with me. I think we'd better not contact each other until this is over. And Mike is happy to agree. But what he doesn't realize is that Greg was testing his loyalty. And it takes Greg's 14-year-old daughter to say, my father hoped and expected that you would stand by him. Well, I hope you get a bonus for your big coverage.
His daughter is very protective of him.
She loves him. He's her only parent. I mean, she was very fond of Natalie, but not as a mother. Natalie was more a big buddy of hers. And Greg has been everything to us since her mother died when she was 3. So you can understand the bond between her and him.
Now, back to Emily. She's lost her husband in Iraq. She's gone through a heart surgery, and now she's got this big case. And if that isn't enough to have on her plate, she has a very odd neighbor by the name of Zach Lanning.
Well, you know what is the scariest thing is the man next door situation, where you think he's a nice, quiet, harmless little guy. In fact, he is a serial killer. He murdered 2 wives. He keeps changing his identity. And 2 years ago, he had murdered his wife, her mother, and her children. So he is dangerous. But he's the kind of guy who has to have someone who belongs to him. And he fixates on Emily, even to the point where when a contract was in painting, he had managed to sneak in and put a little microphone so that when she's in the kitchen, and she lives alone, and she has a little dog named after, or not named after, but modeled after my daughter's 9-pound Maltese. And she's talking to Bess as she's having coffee, and he's right in the next house, looking and can just about see her a little bit and listening to every word she's saying. There's nothing scarier than feeling as though someone is watching.
And she feels so very alone because her father's just moved down to Florida and her brother has moved out to California, that Zach can kind of get his way into her life by helping out with Bess.
By helping out with Bess. Well, the thing is that when you're writing about women in jeopardy, you don't want her to have a husband, a big brother, who's a state trooper, and loads of male brothers or whoever it is around her, because it lessens the danger. In this case, her father had remarried after, her mother's been dead 10 or 12 years, so she doesn't begrudge that at all, but is ready to move to Florida. Her brother got a very good job in Silicon Valley, and her father gave her her childhood home, which is the same thing Natalie did. When she broke up with Greg, she found out her childhood home was for sale and bought it because it was in New Jersey, but out of Manhattan, so she wouldn't be running into him all the time.
Now, in the course of writing, you put your characters through so much. Do you ever feel a little bit guilty for killing some of these people off?
No. They had to go. No, and you notice I don't do killings on camera. I never have. It would be as he crept in, she saw him, said, please, and that's all you see. You don't, I like the Alfred Hitchcock way of telling a story, where it's implied, the moment. The scariest scene ever done was Psycho, that 14-second segment, and with all the new technology, that's still been voted the scariest. And what did you see? The eye, her silhouette, she wasn't, you don't see her body, but you see her silhouette in the shower, the hand with the knife, the bobbing figure as she tries to avoid him, and then the drain with blood running down into it.
Of course, Bernard Herrmann's excellent score.
Yeah, the music was glorious. But the point is, you don't have to see her stabbed, you don't have to see her crumbling. Mickey Spillane once wrote, I shot her in one eye to see the expression in the other. Well, and he was a great guy, but that's not the way I do it. I'd rather do it with the implication of what's happening.
Now, you've written over 36 books, and over the years, you've sold 100 million, as we said. Is there a point where you say, why don't I own an island and give up the writing life?
Oh, Lord, no. What would I do? I can't play bridge. I can't golf, you know. I do love to go to the theater, but you're not going to go to the theater every night. And I enjoy my family. They all live near me. We're very blessed. Both my children and my husband's children are all local. And people say, you must have great reunions. I have 5 kids and 6 grandchildren. John has 4 and 9 grandchildren. They say, 11. You must have great reunions. I say, who needs them? They all are in and out of the house all the time. So we've thoroughly enjoyed the family. And, you know, we have a couple of vacation homes that everybody uses. But I am a writer. If I weren't writing, I'd be finding myself crawling upstairs to the computer and just saying, well, maybe I'll just play games. And I'll be writing. I would never publish unless I thought I could tell a good story. I can promise you that.
Now, is there anything that you do in particular that helps keep your creative well filled up?
Read the newspapers. In my very first writing class, I had just gotten married, I was 22, and I said, I have to learn how to be a professional writer. And the professor said, so you want to know what to write? I'll tell you. You read the newspaper, you see something that interests you, you think about it. Ask yourself 2 questions, suppose and what if, and turn that factual account into fiction. I've been doing that for 34 years. I add 1 question, which is why. Because if 4 people might have committed the crime, only 1 would have committed it. The 4 had motive, they had opportunity, but only 1 would be psychotic enough, angry enough, bitter enough to take a life or a series of lives.
Now, the first novel you wrote was actually a historical novel about George Washington. What led the switch to suspense?
The fact it didn't sell, which is a very good reason. I had 2 in law school, 2 in Ivy League colleges, and 1 in a private girls' school. And let me tell you, I was writing the radio shows, but I was kind of joking. And I was doing that historical show, and it was 4-minute program. He was the tailor from Tennessee who became president of the United States. Do you know who he is? Da, 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 da. And I had never done Washington, and they said, hey, come on, you haven't done the first president. The minute I looked and researched him, I thought, we don't know that man. Do we know that he was 6'4" when men were 5'7"? Do we know that Martha was never known as Martha in her lifetime? She was always called Patsy. And he called her my dearest Patsy. That was the way he addressed her. Do we know that I had heard that she was older than he? Yeah, she was 8 months older, 27 to his 26. Did we know she traveled 6 weeks to go through the British lines to join him in Boston when the Revolutionary War was going on? Or that she spent the winter at Valley Forge with him? And I thought, I'm going to write a book about that. It took me 3 years from 5 till 7 in the morning. It did get published, it sold nothing, and it just died. But 9 years ago, a descendant of Washington's family said, I have read that book, and we know that it is an accurate account of their relationship. And the Mount Vernon Historical Association asked if they could publish it. I joked with my editor that Simon & Schuster wasn't interested in my first book. Certain other people were. My editor read it and offered me $1 million to co-do it with them. So they co-produced the book, and he got portraits from Mount Vernon and scattered them through. I am signing book plates. It became a bestseller, and I have 4,000 book plates home waiting for me to sign for Mount Vernon now, because it's constantly being sold.
And that makes all of your books are still in print.
All of them are still in print, yes.
It's an amazing for a career that spans almost 40 years.
It is kind of fun, isn't it?
All those books to still be available for everybody.
There you go.
Now, a couple of your children have achieved the position of judges.
That's right.
In the legal system. Do you ever hit them up for legal insight for your books?
Well, I might ask a question. I might read something and say, would a judge say this? Well, not quite, put it that way. But I used to go to trials all the time. I loved going to trials when I was early on writing, like Where Are the Children in the first books. Nobody knew me from Adam. But you get more human interest in a trial than any writer can ever create, because it is not the judge and it's not the jury, nor the defendant, nor the prosecutor who is the most important person. It's the victim. You see a woman on the stand in a crumpled dress and a plastic bag, and they show it to her. Is that the dress she was wearing the last day? Yes, it is the dress. Let's call it Beth. Yes, it is the dress Beth was wearing. How do you know it was the dress? I am sure it was the dress because it was the first time she had worn it. She looked so pretty in it. She came and sort of twirled around my desk because it had kind of a full skirt. And 9 hours later, Beth was dead in that dress. And you have that moment of realizing you almost can see a young girl twirling in that dress. You have a young boy on the stand, he's 16 years old. You have a sister. No, I had a sister. There's a moment of grief that comes, many moments of grief, when you realize you're here because someone else is not. And that's why I really got to know the court system very well.
Now, what do you think our fascination with fictionalized forms of these crimes are?
Well, you know what it is? There's a sense of justice that comes. At the end of a novel, a suspense novel, a mystery, for the most part, the villain is found and punished. There is justice for the victim. Good triumphs, evil does not. And there's a sense of righteousness in us that it satisfies us.
Now, you are huge around the world. I mean, just in America you've sold 100 million, but also you're one of the best-selling, if not the best-selling novelist in France. What is it about the French national personality that attracts them to your books?
Well, you know what I think it is? The French are very family-oriented. They really care for each other very, very much. And I think the fact that I always have an attractive woman who is smart, and they never have silver spoons. Only once or twice did I have someone who was born into money, and only because it fit the plot. But they've earned it themselves. They're at a certain point because of their own intelligence and hard work. And I think the French identify with the caring of the people for each other, the need to get her back home before it's too late.
Now, before we started filming, you counted up for our sound check in French. Do you read your books in French?
went to Villa Maria Academy, and they taught French. I do not have an ear. I can read, not so much my books, but I can read a newspaper. I have a terrible accent. My oldest, two of the girls have excellent French accents. You know, from school, in school they just learn quickly, and they wince if I say anything. But when I read the newspaper, I can tell you what was in the article, what it's about.
Now, of course, in foreign languages, translators are so key. Do you have a close relationship with your French translator?
She has been doing me since the first one, 34 years.
Wow.
And I insisted on her. At one point they were saying, well, you know, we don't, because she gets a royalty. You know, it's really not fair that a translator gets. I said, look, she's in my contract. I was about to sign a contract. Because her translation, she says, I look in French for the idiom you used in English. So the nuances make such a difference in translation.
Have you ever been surprised on which languages you have made it into?
Urdu. You Urdu. Urdu. Of course, there are about 3 copies published, you know.
In Pakistan? Is that where they speak Urdu?
I think it is that. And, of course, sometimes Russia, I don't think it's still they publish, but they don't pay royalties. China still does not pay royalties. At one of the book conventions, a Chinese lady came up, a lovely person, and she said, I'm your Chinese publisher, you're so popular. I said, oh, swell.
Let me talk to Penn and see if I can get some help with you. Now, of course, you and your daughter Carol have a Christmas book series. Is there another book coming up soon from you two?
Well, we just did one, Dashing Through the Snow, and everyone is asking us on our signings, is we're going to have one this year. But you know, writing 2 books in a year is hard work. We didn't raise our heads from July till early October when that one was finished, Dashing Through the Snow. Then we did some signings on it, and then the new books were due. The April books, mine and hers. So I feel as though I haven't lifted my head up. So to start writing a Christmas book and then the other book, in fact, I think some members of the family would shoot me if I did.
Do you enjoy doing the Christmas books because they're a little bit lighter in tone than...
Yeah, because I have one funny character, Elvira Meehan, the cleaning lady, who won $40 million in the lottery, and she's an amateur sleuth now. And Elvira is funny. So we use her in the Christmas books with Carol's Reagan Riley, who is, you know, a funny, very humorous. Her books are humorous. And I can let Elvira be funny. And I love being able to laugh when I write about her. But in my books, I'm building up suspense. If I have a very amusing character, the suspense is broken.
Do we have another book scheduled for next April?
I'm sure there'll be another book. What it's about yet, I don't know. I have a glimmer of an idea. But in June, next month, when finished all the signings and all the lunches that are still scheduled, and then I'll sit down and say, okay, time to get busy.
Well, Mary, thank you so much for stopping by and talking with us today on Book Talk.
It's a real pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Mary Higgins Clark is the author of Just Take My Heart, which is available from Simon & Schuster. I'm Stephen Usry, and this is Book Talk.
The Library Channel, a broadcast service of the Memphis Public Libraries and the City of Memphis.